Hey guys, it's Mr. Mini Painter, and today I'm painting Bifur from Thorin's Company. Famous from the Hobbit movies, one of the many dwarves accompanying Bilbo to collect the Arkenstone from Smaug. So here you see I primed my model black and did some modeling sand on the bottom, which I primed with dried bark. You can do that afterwards if you want. I find it easier to start with. For the face I'm using Bugman's Glow. Face, hands, that's basically the only parts of the skin that is showing with this model. Bifur is a very funny character, I think. He has his hammer lodged into his forehead, which we're going to paint later on. But to continue on the skin, I'm using Cadian Flesh Tone as a second layer. And as you can see, I'm leaving some of the recessed areas with Bugman's Glow as a natural shade. You can do that with Reichland Flesh Shade if you want, but I find this more natural looking. I repeated the process with some Kislev Flesh, and this time you focus on the raised area. So the tip of the nose, the tip of the thumbs, the fingers, the cheekbones, maybe an upper lip or something like that. And then the eyes, Palette Witch Flesh. They are ever so difficult, these eyes. Make sure you have a very fine-tipped brush and make movements in the direction of the eye, so horizontal movements if you're holding it like this. And that way you can pretty well achieve a decent result. If not, just correct it with some Bugman's Glow or stuff like that, a darker skin tone in the eye sockets. The pupils I did with Abaddon Black. Next I gave the face a little wash with a thinned down version of Carabor Crimson. Just to have the parts where the skin touches the hair have a little shade, a bit of a reddish tone. I like it for this mini. Then Corn Red I used to give him a little bit of a rosy face, a bit of red on the nose and the cheeks, a very thinned down version of Corn Red, so not too much, you don't want to make him a clown. Then Abaddon Black to retouch the parts of the hair that you may have touched with some Bugman's Glow, so make sure that it's nice and black, as he is a black-haired character. Next we're going to be shading that with Ashen Grey for the top of the hair and as a natural highlight to the black. And for the beard we're going to take it a little step further by adding some Administratum Grey to the mix. You can do it pure or maybe mix it with the previous Ashen Grey if you want, and create these nice details in his beard. Check out some pictures of him and you see he has this very checkered beard with black and gray woven into each other. It looks very funny, and you can create more or less the same effect by doing so. The hair I left more or less untouched, just a few specks on the front, but the rest leave it nice and dark so the beard really stands out. You should get something looking like this. Then, to continue on the shirt, Steel Legion Drab. I used it to cover most of the clothing of Bifur, and later on corrected it with some black parts you can see later on in the movie. Leave the sides of the coat nice and dark. Black we're going to color him in later on. And with Corvus Black I'm filling in the lines in between until you get something looking like this. It looks quite nice. The black and the brown. He doesn't really have much colors in his clothing, so we're gonna add a few more details to make him a little bit more interesting. So first we're gonna paint the rims of the coat with Rhinox hide, just to add a different shade of brown. Next we're taking out some Baneblade Brown, and we're going to be painting all the fringes on the bottom of the coat. Make sure to hold your brush sideways. It's not really caught well on camera, this process, but here you can see more or less what I mean. Hold your brush sideways and kind of dry brush this paint on. And now to make them a little bit more interesting, we're going to add some lines with Abaddon Black. Create a pattern as if it were a patched vest or something like that. Kind of a studded shirt. And it looks quite nice when done. You can see here I added some horizontal and vertical lines, so you create some tiny squares and just make him look a little bit more rich than just the few colors he has. Next I'm washing the entire coat with Agrax Earth Shades, and I overdid a little bit here, as you can see, so try to take it back. If this happens to you, the big plus of washes is that you can correct them quite easily. It's more difficult with a contrast paint, for example. Next I painted the boots with dried bark. Also the scabbard. I then used some Gorthor Brown to highlight everything. Create some natural highlights on the top of the folds, the raised parts, the parts that would catch the most light. And if you're unsure how to do it, just use an actual light. It's usually easiest done in the beginning of the process. Maybe make a picture with a light shining on top of your model, and then you can see where the light would normally hit. I then applied lead belcher to all the metal parts, which is the hammer jammed to his forehead and his weapon, of course. So now the wooden part of the hammer I did with dried bark. There's just a very tiny piece. It's quite hard to see, but if you're in doubt, check some pictures of him. Next I washed all the metal parts with some nylon oil. So that's the metal on the weapon and the hammer in his forehead. And I then used Dawnstone while it was drying to create some lines on his weapon. Again, to make him a little bit more interesting. I went all around on all the sides of the weapon. And then with Stormhost Silver, I added some sharpness to the halberd he's holding. Just to make it look very rough and edgy and sharp. The side, you hold your brush like this, sideways, and create a fine line, and do the same with the tiny details over here. Try and create a line here if you can, to make it look like a nice square with a dark middle. It's those tiny details that really spice up your model. Then with some Gal Vorbak red, I decided to create some old scar, because this hammer has been lodged into his forehead for quite some time. So Gal Vorbak is kind of a purplish red, which looks like a bit of an old wound, so to say. It's like healed scars. Again, this just gives him this tiny extra finesse. I then continued on the trims of the belt with some ashen gray. Edge highlight those. And then it's just the base that is left. I used dried bark as a base color, and I'm dry brushing some Baneblade Brown on top of it to create some extra color. Next, Carrick Stone to brighten it up a little bit. And after this, we're going to use Palette Witch Flesh for a final extreme highlight. Make sure to do a very light dry brush of this. And of course then you can add some details to the base if you want. And there he is, Bifur, one of the many dwarves done in Thorin's Company paint guides. I'm doing all of the dwarves, so please subscribe to the channel to keep posted on the next video. I would love it if you leave a comment. I'd like to hear from you, and I hope to see you in one of my next videos. Bye bye!